Today's case will make you think deeply about the fragile line between what is considered normal and what is evil. Stephen Sueppel's terrible decisions triggered a chain of catastrophic events, ending with him committing one of the most unimaginable crimes. He destroyed his entire family in a desperate attempt to escape the consequences of his actions. However, as you'll see, his crimes came back to haunt him in the most painful way. Join us as we uncover this chilling case and try to understand the motives behind his horrifying actions. From the outside, the Sueppel family seemed like the epitome of perfection. Stephen, a former bank executive, was highly respected in his community. His wife, Cheryl, was known for her kindness and dedication to their 4 children, Ethan, Seth, Marera, and Eleanor. The Sueppel household was filled with laughter and love, creating a perfect image that others envied. Stephen and Cheryl were active members of their church and community, often seen at local events and gatherings. Their children were bright and involved in school activities and sports. Ethan, the eldest, was a promising student and athlete, while Seth, Marera, and Eleanor each had their own unique talents and passions. From the outside, the Sueppel family seemed to live a charmed life. But beneath that perfect surface, a dark storm was brewing. Stephen had a secret, one that even his closest family members were unaware of. As a bank executive, Stephen had access to substantial financial resources, and over time, he embezzled millions of dollars. This financial deceit was not driven by greed, but rather a desperate attempt to maintain the lifestyle his family had grown accustomed to. The pressure of keeping up appearances and providing the best for his loved ones pushed Stephen to make increasingly reckless decisions. The weight of his actions began to crush him. The once confident and capable man began to unravel under the strain of guilt and the fear of being exposed. He knew his actions were wrong, but he felt trapped, unable to find any way out without destroying his family's reputation and future. Stephen Sueppel was born in 1965, the 6th of 8 siblings in Iowa City, Iowa. He graduated from the University of Northern Iowa in 1983 with a business degree. In 1985, Stephen's life changed when he met Cheryl at a bar in Iowa. Their relationship quickly blossomed into a deep and inseparable bond. Friends described them as soulmates, 2 people destined for each other. They married on June 13, 1990, and spent over 18 years together, including their dating years. Family and friends often said they were meant to be together. As Stephen advanced in his career and became the vice president at Hills Bank and Trust, their life seemed perfect. However, the couple faced a major challenge. They were unable to have children of their own. After much deliberation, they decided to adopt, hoping to create the family they had always wanted. Little did they know, this decision would be the catalyst that led to a series of tragic events that would destroy everything they had built. The Sueppel family's journey to building their perfect home was one of love, hope, and dreams realized. They traveled all the way to South Korea, where they opened their hearts to 4 children, one by one. By 2008, their family was complete, though the exact dates of the adoptions remain unclear. But what was clear to their friends and loved ones was the sheer joy and excitement that radiated from Stephen and Cheryl as they prepared to welcome each new child into their lives. They shared photos of their future children, eagerly counting down the days until they could bring them home. Ethan, the eldest, was born in 1997 and was the first to be adopted. At the age of 10, Ethan had already shown remarkable intelligence, maturity, and social grace. He loved the cello, fishing trips with his father, and soccer, a sport that brought him joy and connection with his family. Next came Seth, born in 1999. Though shy by nature, Seth had a deep love for animals and a quiet, adventurous spirit. His gentle, sensitive personality was endearing, and he found solace in nature, especially in the beauty of gardens and flowers. Then, in 2002, Mira joined the family. Full of energy and enthusiasm, she was a little entertainer, always eager to showcase her latest talents. Family friends fondly recalled how she would perform magic tricks at Christmas gatherings, her face lighting up with excitement. Finally, there was Eleanor, born in 2004, the youngest of the four. At just 3.5 years old, Eleanor had formed a special bond with her adoptive father. Their closeness was evident to anyone who saw them, and their love was the glue that held the family together. The Sueppel family became known for their generosity, always involved in local charities and active in their church. Despite the outward image of a happy, thriving family, Stephen carried a secret. As a bank executive, he had access to large sums of money, and over time, he had embezzled millions. But this wasn't born out of greed. It was driven by an overwhelming desire to maintain the lifestyle his family had grown accustomed to. The pressure to keep up appearances and provide the best for his loved ones pushed Stephen to make increasingly reckless decisions. He began to feel the weight of his actions crushing him. The confident, capable man he once was started to unravel, consumed by guilt and the constant fear of being exposed. As the investigation into the missing funds escalated, Stephen's mental state began to deteriorate. He became withdrawn, plagued by sleepless nights and a deepening sense of hopelessness. His descent into darkness was slow but unmistakable. Colleagues at the bank began to notice his change in demeanor. The once sociable and energetic executive had become quiet, distant, and stressed. Cheryl, too, sensed that something was wrong. She noticed Stephen's growing detachment, the long hours he spent at the office, and the shadows under his eyes. But whenever she asked, he brushed off her concerns, claiming that work pressures were to blame. March 22, 2008, started like any other day in the Sueppel household. Cheryl and the children went about their routines, unaware of the storm brewing within Stephen. That evening, the family gathered for dinner, sharing stories and enjoying the simple joys of family life. To anyone looking in, it was just another night of love and normalcy. But for Stephen, it was the calm before the storm. His mind was consumed by a dark decision, one he believed was the only way to protect his family from the shame and suffering that would come with the revelation of his crimes. In his twisted logic, he convinced himself that ending the lives of his beloved family and his own was the only way to spare them. The horror that was to follow would be the tragic consequence of his misguided beliefs, a tragedy that no one could have predicted. March 23, 2008, a night of unimaginable horror. At 11:30 p.m., a chilling voicemail was left at a law firm in Iowa City. Stephen Sueppel's voice, cold and emotionless, claimed his family was in heaven. The message was the beginning of a horrifying unraveling of events that shocked the community and the nation. The nightmare unfolds. Investigators would later find Cheryl Sueppel, 42, lifeless in her bed, the victim of a brutal bludgeoning. Between Sunday night and the early hours of Monday morning, Stephen attempted to kill himself and his 4 adopted children through carbon monoxide poisoning. He gathered the children in the family's van parked inside the garage, but for reasons unknown, the attempt failed. What followed was an act of unimaginable savagery. Stephen brought the children back inside the house and, one by one, took their lives with a baseball bat. The 3 older children were found in their shared bedroom, while the youngest lay in the downstairs toy room. There were no signs of restraints or prolonged struggle, only the grim evidence of a father's descent into madness. A series of haunting calls. Between 3:45 a.m. and 6:31 a.m., Stephen left a string of eerie voice messages. First to his former office, then multiple calls to his home voicemail, where he expressed regret and recounted a failed suicide attempt by drowning in a river.
"I tried to drown, but I just kept floating,"
he confessed with unsettling detachment. Finally, at 6:31 a.m., Stephen dialed 911, calmly requesting that authorities go to his home immediately. The tone of the call, devoid of any visible emotion, mirrored the earlier voicemails, haunting, methodical, and hollow. After the murders, Stephen made a final attempt to end his own life by overdosing on pills, then trying to drown himself in the bathtub. Both attempts failed. In utter despair, he fled the house, driving aimlessly until dawn. His journey ended violently when his car crashed into a concrete pillar on Interstate 80. The impact was fatal. The discovery of the tragedy shook Iowa City to its core. Neighbors and friends, who had known the Sueppels as a loving family involved in charity and church activities, struggled to comprehend the atrocity. Candlelit vigils and memorial services were held to mourn Cheryl and the children. The media swarmed the small town, eager to dissect every aspect of the case, from Stephen's embezzlement as a bank executive to his unraveling mental state. The horrifying transformation of a respected professional into a murderer captivated the nation. Why did Stephen believe murder was the only solution to his problems? Were there warning signs that others failed to see? Mental health experts sought to understand his descent, but the full picture of Stephen's descent into despair remained elusive. When news broke of the Sueppel family tragedy, the adoption center in South Korea, which had facilitated the children's adoption, was stunned. They claimed they had seen no signs of turmoil within the family. What could have led to such a horrific unraveling? Before his death in a fiery crash, Stephen Sueppel left behind a handwritten 4-page letter on the kitchen table, a haunting confession of the murders he committed and the suicide attempts that followed. Penned as a message to surviving family members, the note carried a chilling rationale. Stephen believed he had done the best thing for his family. Those who read the letter described its apologetic tone. Stephen spoke of his financial crimes, the criminal charges looming over him, and the devastating guilt of leaving his wife, Cheryl, to single-handedly care for and support their 4 children. He portrayed himself as inseparable from his family, incapable of imagining a future where they lived without him. The details in the note aligned disturbingly well with the evidence found at the crime scene. Investigators and University of Iowa sociologists later suggested that Stephen had likely been crushed under the weight of maintaining the appearance of a perfect life, an image that began to crumble when Cheryl stopped working and the couple adopted 4 children. As financial troubles mounted and criminal accusations loomed, Stephen's world became a pressure cooker of shame and anxiety. Yet, like so many burdened by societal expectations, he kept his struggles hidden, never seeking help or confiding in others. His descent into despair, marked by isolation and secrecy, painted a grim picture of the stigma surrounding both financial collapse and mental health. For friends and family, the aftermath was filled with guilt and agonizing questions. Could we have seen this coming? Were there signs we missed? Could we have stopped it? The sorrow of losing the Sueppel was compounded by the haunting doubt that perhaps someone could have intervened. The tragedy shook Iowa City to its core. It exposed painful truths about societal pressures, mental health stigma, and the dangers of living beyond one's means. But it also sparked change. The local church, once a beacon for the Sueppel family, became a hub for discussions on mental health. Schools and workplaces launched new initiatives focused on stress management and financial counseling. Community support groups emerged, offering safe spaces for people to share their burdens and seek help without judgment. What began as a nightmare became a catalyst for healing and awareness, a somber reminder that even the most successful facades can conceal unimaginable pain. And in the wake of devastation, a community vowed to never again let silence become the cost of survival. Local schools and organizations also began to integrate lessons learned from the tragedy into their programs. Mental health awareness campaigns were launched, and financial literacy workshops were offered to help individuals manage their finances more effectively. The goal was to create a community where people felt empowered to seek help and where resources were readily available. The story of Stephen Sueppel and his family is one of tragedy, but it is also a story of a community's resilience. It is a stark reminder of the potential consequences of unchecked mental health issues and financial pressures. The lessons learned from this heartbreaking event have had a lasting impact on Iowa City, fostering a culture of openness, support, and compassion. Professor Jack Levin, a professor of sociology and criminology, has said that the profile of a man who kills his family is a middle-aged man, a good provider who would appear to neighbors to be a dedicated husband and a devoted father. It cannot be ignored that in an estimated 95% of cases, the perpetrator is male and the head of the household. This traditional idea of the man providing for and looking after his family may be one factor. When he no longer feels he is meeting this role adequately, often if finances or employment breaks down, he feels that his own financial failings ruin the point of having a family. Because they wish to save their family from a perceived threat, when Cheryl returned to work, it must have felt like adding insult to injury to Sueppel, who had previously prided himself on his ability to care for his family. Murdering all family members was, therefore, a way of saving himself from the hardship and shame of financial troubles and bankruptcy. Such murderers almost always commit suicide afterward. Professor David Wilson has stated that family annihilators have received little attention as a separate category of killer, and they are often treated like spree or serial murderers. This view presupposes traits such as the idea that the murderer snaps, or that after killing their partner or children, the killer may force a standoff with the police, which is not an entirely accurate representation of these killers. As we've seen, by all accounts, Sueppel was a normal person with a normal upbringing. Until the last minute, there was no indication that he was strained enough to carry out a murder. This lack of any red flags makes the case all the more chilling. Through the tragedy of the Sueppel family, we learn the vital importance of addressing our problems, seeking help, and supporting those around us. Their story, though filled with sorrow, leaves us with a powerful legacy of hope, resilience, and the enduring strength of community. By coming together and learning from their story, we can create a world where tragedies like this are less likely to occur, where people feel supported and connected, and where no one is left to face their darkest moments alone. Do you think Sueppel premeditated these horrific murders, or did he act on impulse? Do you have any theories about where he could have been spending the money he stole? It's sad that we won't know what actually happened, but this case still haunts many Iowans to this day. Share your thoughts in the comments below. We're on the trail of the next big mystery.